So then moving down the budget lines, unemployment, we do not pay unemployment insurance. We have only paid unemployment when and if that has, someone has left and filed for unemployment. The last time that happened, I believe, was 2013, I think. So it's been several years since that's happened, and we typically don't have that happen. So there's nothing in that budget line. Retirement has gone down slightly. If you look at my notes, I did do some explanation about the 2 different retirement plans that we're still funding. It's always a shocker when we have to write that big check to CNA for that annual check. Where we are seeing some savings in IMRF because that is a percentage of salaries. But also, as I said in my notes, there was a big drop, well, there will be a big drop in 2019 of what the employer portion of IRF. I will tell you that for the entire time that I've been paying attention to the employer portion of IRF and not just the employee portion, it's always been in the 9% to 10% range. I've never seen it this low. But as you can see from my notes, just in that 2% drop, that will save us about $18,500. Which their investments have been going gangbusters.
Yeah, and
So that's a very nice perk for us. So that's why that line is a little bit down. I budget for about $200,000 for the MRF plan, the CNA plan, and then the rest is IRF payments for that. Health insurance. Last year's budget assumed an 8% increase. That did not happen. I don't imagine that will be true this year. So I am budgeting again for an 8% increase. Unfortunately, I won't know until next week whether or not what the increase is going to be. The Wellness Insurance Network, which is the health insurance consortium that we're a part of, their board will vote on the rates at their board meeting. I believe it's Wednesday, and they'll send out an email, and then there's an all-member meeting in October that I usually go to. But so this is kind of it's an educated shot in the dark, but so I figured for an 8% increase. This increase assumes no increase in the portion that we require our staff to pay, which we're, as I mentioned, we're very generous with that. The staff pays $30 a month towards their health insurance, and the letter picks up the rest. Yes, it's very, we don't pay any portion of any family coverage or anything like that, but for the individual coverage, it is very generous. So assuming that any increase comes, assuming that any increase comes under, 8% or under, we're fine. Should it come in higher, we may have to look at bumping up that portion that the staff has to pay into. What I don't want to do is have the board approve a 2.5 increase in the salary pool and have that all eaten up with health insurance, but we'll do what we have to, because obviously we're trying to do as much as we can with without dinging the taxpayers too much. So I think that the board can agree. That's always in the back of my mind that we want to get as much as we can for as little as we can, obviously. So health insurance, fingers crossed, but I'll know more about that towards the end of the week. FSA, EDC fees, that's our flex spending account fees. Those pretty much stay the same. We usually have the same people that participate in that plan, so those don't usually go up or down too awfully much. Long-term disability insurance and life insurance are all remaining the same. So those plans stay pretty standard, are pretty consistent over time. The book budget money did drop fairly significantly, and that's because we were spending less on print. That was requested by Natalia, and we are, if you look kind of conversely, we asked for a big increase in the AV budget because we're doing a lot more downloading and streaming of materials, ebooks, e-audiobooks, those kinds of things. So circulation and spending on the physical items is going down, but the e-content is going up significantly, so that's why that's less. Books for the Youth Services Department is a little bit $500 more than last year. They are just to make up for some replacement of old, worn out, fiction titles, more picture book titles, those kinds of things. Since we're moving to face-out shelving, starting to move out with face-out shelving for the picture books, they've been weeding those collections pretty heavily, and so wanted to replace those. Periodicals has gone up. Eric had mentioned during the finance committee, if you look at the check register, one of the checks is for Revistas. That's our magazine jobber. Most of our print magazines come through that jobber. That's about $14,000 for the year. And then we get out most of our magazines through them. There's a few that are selected individually. But then we also have a new online magazine source called Flipster. And so this increase of magazines is because we've added some additional titles to that online magazine resource. AV for the adult section, as I said, has increased quite a bit to reflect the increase in streaming and e-content. Both, Overdrive, we're members of eRead Illinois through Rails and the state. We each have bookmarks, which is places for a new download streaming content movie vendor. Oclc content that's all in streaming and e-content. So. And looking at the statistics, those, as I said, those things continue to go up fairly significantly from even month to month, and certainly year to year. So that's kind of AV for YS has remained the same as last year. So what Courtney had commented on is that she thinks that the DVD disc cleaner that the board agreed to let us purchase has had a really positive impact on that budget line. So rather than having to replace discs that it might be damaged and scratches and that kind of thing, we've been able to clean them and keep them in the collection, so not have to replace them. So we've been able to keep that one flat. Digitization, we always put this in there. We haven't done much with it in the past several years. I do keep it as a placeholder because as time and space either forces us to digitize some of our old newspapers and that kind of thing. And so we're doing a lot of cleaning out of what was the storage area, local history collections. So we do anticipate that we'll get to digitization of some sort. So we keep that in more as a placeholder. Programming for YS and adult programming amounts remain the same. YS asked for a bit more, which I did give them. Program is one of the things that we are absolutely known for, and people rave about it. Copy our programs, want to talk to our librarians about programs from either libraries that are bigger and that kind of thing. So, so I want to continue to support one of our greatest services, I think. So there's not much increase there. Photocopy acquisition and maintenance, that remain pretty much the same. Oops, I forgot. There's many, that's really 2016-8. So I had that as 2018, sorry about that typo. Some of this is contractual obligations. We wouldn't be able to lower this significantly without getting rid of a copier. So, automation is a little bit less this year, or for next year, primarily because previous to 2018 and previous to this year, the Cersei Dynex, which is our current catalog provider, that bill came out of that budget line, and that's about $52,000 to $55,000 a year. So that has been removed, and that has gone into a different budget line that I will create for next year. That is the CCS budget line. So so we were able to reduce those budget lines. This does account, or does allow us to accommodate both new technology that we'll need to either replace some of our aging computers. We're looking to replace some of our current Macintoshes with PCs as we move to CCS in order to fully utilize the new catalog system. Eventually I would like to, right now we're in a dual environment. There are some librarians that still have Macintosh computers, and eventually I want to switch us all over to PCs. So so that's budget line encompasses all of those things.
It is being affected by the your percents on levies affects.
Sure, I mean, should the board approve to, do anything besides keeping a flat levy, we would divide those monies up into different, and I've done that. Most of that, if the board votes for anything besides the 0% increase, would go towards, building and maintenance, YS renovation. Further, as we get higher, then we can, apportion some of those monies out for different things. I mean, there's always things that we want to try that are new or that people ask for and that kind of thing. So, obviously, anything associated with 6200, we hope is zero. So automation at 6,200 has been zero for the last year and this year because once we decided that we were going to try to sell it, it didn't make sense to keep internet over there or anything like that. So, where are we at here? Databases has remained the same for the adult department. We are continually looking at the databases, looking at their usage. One of the librarians in the adult services department is assigned to do that, and so he's in charge of continually monitoring them, looking for either databases that our teachers are either asking for that we think might be better, a better fit for our community. Are there things that provide the same type of thing that may be cheaper, that kind of thing. So that's a continually monitored collection. So that has remained the same. Databases for YS, again, they only have a couple that they pay out of the YS budget line. We will maintain those, just shows a reflection of an increase that we normally plan for. So no real big change in those. Line 6330, which is the databases for staff support, that showed a significant decrease because one of the we paid for our OCLC membership, which is how we get most of our catalog records in. 2018 and previous, the OCLC charge came out of this line. This year, the OCLC fee was $19,700. So joining CCS, OCLC fees will be included as part of our membership into there. So that will actually save us some money. So that's been pulled out of there and put into the 6335 budget line, which is new, will be new for 2019, and that will reflect our membership in CCS, which includes OCLC charges, our charges for the catalog, and then we'll get some additional, we'll get one of our databases that will be part of our CCS membership as well. So ultimately, we'll end up saving money when everything is said and done by joining CCS than what we're currently paying.
CCS is 70,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would include, so right now, we're paying.
Oh, because it's a flat thing, okay.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So, that's okay, no problem. Online services, no change in that. Web maintenance and improvements, a big jump in that. We do want to plan in 2019 for a complete revamp of our website. So this will cover a consultant to come in and assist us with doing that.
Were those surveys that you posted or
I'm sorry?
online people posted about
Mhm.
the feedback for the current website and anything that was up? Did you get helpful feedback from that?
We did, and I don't know if you've looked at the website recently, but we have made some changes
Okay.
just to the front. We've tried to clean it up a little bit, make it a little bit less busy. So we're already trying to make some changes to the website based on the feedback that we've gotten and just based on the kind of general trend in websites and library websites in general. What we are looking for is kind of a rebuild from the ground up and a little bit more integration between like a calendar system, potentially online library card registration, a website, a number of different pieces. So
Great.
that's kind of the direction that a lot of that the library websites are going, and so that's what we're looking at doing in 2019. So that's why that has been increased so much. Then down to everyone's favorite, building and maintenance. I feel like we could just put all the money in there and still maybe need some, but so 7010 is our general building maintenance, as you can see in my notes what this includes. All of those things as listed. This is the line that we would take outsourcing a cleaning service out of.
Right, okay.
So,
I thought you said you were taking it out of
Yeah,
salary.
oh, sorry.
I misunderstood you.
No problem.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so that includes all of those things.
So
This
is outsourcing cleaning cheaper than what we've been doing in-house?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't pay
I
pension, you
I
don't
wouldn't
pay
pay,
health insurance.
yes, I mean, there will be some reduction in salaries based on that probably, because we'll be looking at the hours of the maintenance department overall and figure out where we best need them to be. But as Carlotta said, we're not paying health insurance, we're not paying IMRF, we're not paying any of those other
The
things.
other thing you get full-time care, you don't have vacations to worry
Right.
about and sickness
Yeah.
to worry about and.
Yeah, and that's really, that's a big factor
It's
for
a
us.
big
You know, when you've
Yeah.
got a small
All
staff,
over the place.
if 1 or 2 people are out, the building isn't getting cleaned, things aren't being done. And so with the cleaning service, we know that at least there'll be someone here every night that will do, you know, empty the garbage cans, clean the bathrooms, do all of those things. So, we really noticed that last summer when, 2 of our maintenance people were gone for most of the summer. And so it fell on Dave and one other part-time person to kind of, you know, pick up the slack, and that was difficult. So, I mean, we managed to get some things done, but the general cleaning of the building really did fall by the wayside then, because we had other priorities. It was the same time that the kitchen was falling apart and stuff like that. There was a lot going on. So it eliminates some of that kind of uncertainty, and then, and again, not having to be responsible for the
Is the
pensions and stuff.
intention of this, though, when maintenance retires, they will not be replaced? They will be with, if this outsourced maintenance works. Do you know what I'm saying? It's I don't know who's retiring next, and I'm not gonna.
We are looking at reduction of hours,
Okay,
so.
okay.
Well, that's how you
And
get
and when they
how much
retire, they will not be replaced by the library, they will fall right into this outsourced maintenance.
It would depend.
Yeah,
It
I
would
mean,
depend,
that-
because
that-
we're still gonna need people here. So,
Okay.
so there's still gonna, you know, we still have room setups, we still have, you know, other things that need to be done throughout the day. And so, you know, Dave and I have been talking a lot about, you know, what skill sets do we need, what activities happen during the day, when do people need to be here, that kind of thing.
Okay, so
So
you're talking strictly night,
I'm talking strictly night, strictly
Okay.
cleaning,
okay.
so yeah, so we're looking at all of those different things. Building maintenance for the 6200 building, again, hopefully there won't be anything for that next year. I did forget to mention previous to this, and I'm sure it might come up later on when we talk about the building. There was some roof leaking in the 6200 Lincoln Avenue building. We are having some patches done to the roof just to make sure that there's, you know, no moisture getting in the building and that kind of thing. So we were able to do that for a nominal amount, about $3,000. So I thought that was money well spent to make sure that we don't possibly endanger any potential sale or anything like that. So, but again, going forward for next year, fingers crossed that we don't have anything out of any maintenance on that building. 720, the construction in progress. This line, exactly what I say, it kind of reflects extra funds that we can use towards new services and or building improvements that, you know, we might not necessarily plan for that come up during the year. So that is directly impacted by whatever levy amount the board approves or asks for, asks the village to ask for. Obviously, if the levy is increased at all, that amount could go up. Equipment and machinery maintenance, that has gone up. There's some contractual arrangements, sprinkler, fire alarms, HVAC. This line was increased from last year because we're going to be replacing one of the older HVAC units. So we're looking forward to being able to replace that on our schedule and not on an emergency basis. So that's planned for 2019. So now that I said that, it will probably break tomorrow. But fingers crossed that we can do it in 2019, so that's why that's higher. Furniture acquisition, we kept the same as this year. We'll be looking at, we're looking at getting some different furniture possibly for the quiet study room. We're looking at some furniture purchases for youth services. I may be looking at furniture purchases for my office. If you've been in there, I'm working off of 2 tables.
So you're buying furniture for the team?
And we're also looking at the team,
Okay.
yeah. So we've looked at a number of, we've been out to a couple of furniture places, we're getting some different ideas, we're pricing things out, we haven't made any firm decisions, but one of the things, if you've been in the teen area, I don't know that any of you necessarily would have at this point, but the big round couch that was purchased this in 2015 is falling apart. It's all ripped, all the upholstery is ripped.
Is that the walkthrough where the kids were?
Yeah,
coming?
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
jumping on it.
So I didn't realize, I knew that there was a couple seams that were ripped, and then when we did a walkthrough with a furniture rep, just so she could get an idea of different spaces, because we were just looking at some different things. It's even, the seating is even more ripped, and so she's gonna contact the company for us to see if there's anything they can do, because it's only a couple of years old, it's 3 years old, and, but it's not holding up particularly well. But, so we're looking at a variety of different things. Again, I'm keeping it flat if there's no levy increase. Certainly as we get to the higher percentages, or if it's something that the board approves, we would be able to add more money to that. But, let's see, utilities, insurance, library supplies, telephone, and postage, those have remained the same based on estimates towards the end of the year. I think that those numbers are fine. They're either funds that we're contractually obligated for, or we run either at or pretty close to cost on those, so no increase in those lines. Printing, we bumped up to reflect some outsourced printing of promotional and PR pieces, both for the new catalog, but also we are in the process of developing some packets that we hand out with new library cards to let people know of all our services and stuff like that. We really don't do a good job of that at library card sign-up time, so we're hoping to do some things with that, so we bump that up a little bit more. Promotion and publicity, I kept at the same level. I know that was bumped up because this year is our 80th anniversary, but one of the things that I think that the library, we've been doing much better, and I think that we need to continue to do so, is to promote our services and our programs and what we do here. So I would like to keep that line at that level, because those things unfortunately do cost us some money. Staff recognition, meals, recreation recognition, I did bump up slightly, potentially bringing in outside speakers for staff and service days, staff recognition events, that kind of thing. You know, people retire or have significant anniversaries and that kind of thing, they try to do something. So that's slightly up. Continuing education, I kept the same. Memberships, I actually bumped up about $1,000. It's a more accurate reflection of what we spend. We've had it at $3,000 for a number of years, and all of a sudden it seems like, I think dues have gone up a little bit. A few more people are taking advantage of the membership and that kind of thing, so that reflects that. Professional services, I left the same. That includes our payroll services. And then consultant services, as I mentioned, I would like to do a compensation study. This also includes, we do get some accounting assistance from Sickage, who is our auditor. They're also our auditor. There's a separate line for the audit though. But we do get some assistance with them with accounting. Potential architect fees, if we do end up selling the 6200 building, obviously we have to have the architects come out and really give us a design and those kinds of things. So those fees are reflected somewhat in this line. Miscellaneous remains the same. Vending was increased when we made the vending expenditure line last year was kind of a shot in the dark. We really didn't know how much we would spend on vending stock, and so the 5,000 is a more accurate reflection of that, as is the vending revenue is a more accurate reflection. It's $2,000 more in revenue than we thought we were spending, and 2,000 more, or 2,000 more that we were getting, and then 2,000 more that we were spending. So that's why that is increased. I didn't increase mileage. We won't know till December if the rate is changing, but usually this number has been okay for us. So I'm hoping that gas stays relatively about where it's at, and we should be okay. Collection fees, as I said, it reflects what we would have to pay for other libraries. If a book comes from another library and our patron loses it, we have to reimburse that library. So it's usually a fairly small amount throughout the year. I hope it stays that amount next year with joining the consortium. We will see if that goes up or not, but I think for right now we should be okay. FICA, I don't really have any choice with this. It's 7.65 of all total salaries, and so the slight decrease in this number reflects the slight decrease in the salaries. Audit, no change from 2018. Loan principal and loan interest I kept in here just because they were in the 2018 budget. This was the line of credit loan that we converted to a term loan that was paid off in June, so that will not be in next year's budget. That's gone. We're set. So those are the expenditures. As you can see, keeping the levy flat, meaning we would ask the village to levy for the same amount in 2019 that we did in 2018, allows us to do all of those things, in addition to going fine-free. Any increase in the levy would, as I mentioned earlier, go towards, increased building spending, towards any YS renovations. that kind of thing.
The levy's increased the last 2 years,
The levy increased by 1% last year,
and the year before.
and the year before, I would have to go back and look.
But it did increase.
I believe so.
I hate to do it to us, but my thinking says it's a good time to maybe not ask for an increase. It's just a thought.
That's why
I
I said,
I like asking for more money, everybody else asks for me, so.
and I don't know what the village, I know last year the village did not increase their levy. I don't know what their plans are for this year. I have not heard. But as I said, keeping the levy flat allows us still to do all of the things that we want to do. Any increase above that would, of course, allow us to, put those funds towards building maintenance, towards YS renovation, those kinds of things.
I
So-
wouldn't be against raising it. I don't know how many people even realize what the levy, when they're paying their taxes, that they
Well,
realize it's-
and the thing is too, with I don't live in Warren Grove, so those of you that do, I don't believe the library is separated out though.
It is not.
It's because, and that's typical for a village
Tax bill
library.
you're talking about?
It's not
On
listed
that
section,
actual tax bill? I don't think it is.
because
And
we are
therefore,
part of the village.
People really
so-
don't know where the extra, when it goes up, they don't really realize if it's a village or if it's a library or whatever.
Well,
else.
unless the village says.
Well, yeah, they might
Advertise it. Yeah, sometimes
They love us so much, they buy.
Well, yeah.
No, but, yeah, so I mean, on your tax bill, you're not seeing the library separated out because we're
Right.
not a district, we're a village library, so, but whatever the board feels comfortable, as I said, this is a first reading, if there's anything,
When do you need to let them know what you're doing?
I usually need to let them know, by the end of October. I haven't gotten the exact date, I need to reach out to Hannah Sullivan, the finance manager over at the village, I haven't done that yet. Because the village usually does the first reading of their budget in their first meeting in November, and then I think they do their second reading at the end of November. So, so we have to have that number to them so they can include it in their overall budget. So I usually
In
get
a
it
small
done by
way, the 6,200 building also makes a difference.
Yes.
If it shouldn't sell by then, there may be expenses that come up that would raise our need for a higher levy.
Possibly, though,
Probably not.
but probably not. But yeah, I mean, there is always that possibility that
I'm a
something
negative-
could happen to it and
person,
we would
so I
have to.
have to present the negative
No.
side of things.
And in all these scenarios, I try to always estimate my revenues low. I'm very conservative with my revenues, and then I try to be really liberal with my expenditures so that I'm always planning for kind of worst case scenario in terms of the monies I'm getting in, and then worst case scenarios of the monies I have to expend. So, as I said, I mean,
So if we go to the village and say we want to increase the levy, how do we present that?
there's a letter that the board president, that I prepare, and I give the village, some, not this level of detail, but they get a copy of our
Kind of
chart of accounts, if you
justifying why.
will, of the budget, and then we formally ask them to levy whatever amount the board has agreed to.
And
And then
then
that goes to the village president, and then,
if the 6,200 building sells,
Mhm.
what benefits do we get to our budget because of the sale?
Basically.
that money, what has been discussed with the board previous is that money would go into our special reserve fund, which we would then use to begin renovations of the youth services department. So that doesn't, the special reserve fund is not reflected on this budget at all. That's a fund that is, that libraries can start by statute, and by statute it can only be used for certain things.
It's like a capital expense.
It's like capital improvements, purchase of a new building, purchase of land, building improvements, that kind of thing. It doesn't affect the tax levy at all unless the board did something like say, oh, we're gonna lower the building maintenance line to $10,000 and we're gonna take the rest out of our special reserve so that we can do building improvements. That's typically not what this board has done, and most boards don't do that. They want to keep that money for truly special reserve items, you know, big capital improvements, that kind of thing. So sale of the building doesn't really impact this budget at all.
The fact that foundation donations is wiped out completely, we're probably not gonna try to do anything.
I'm not opposed to trying to do something. I think as we've seen, what we struggle with is getting people that are involved in the community with it. Having a lot of staff involvement in that means that those staff are taken away from other things, unless we created some kind of position that worked on that. But you know, library size, that's usually not typical. So I mean, that doesn't mean that we still can't try to do something. I keep that at zero because I don't want to expect that money, and then anything that we would potentially get from that would just be extra, would be kind of icing, you know, on the top.
I just somehow would love to see the beginnings of something happening.
Yeah.
But I don't see how it can either.
Some of it is, you know, the community involvement and things like that. One of the things that, you know, as the board knows, I go to the local administrators, I know we keep changing our name, that administrators group that we didn't meet over the summer, and our first meeting back for the fall is Tuesday. But one of the things that, you know, was brought up as we've had these discussions, just kind of emails back and forth, is, you know, that there's a number of organizations or institutions in town that are all trying to kind of pull from the same volunteer pool, and how do we either consolidate what we're trying to do or whatever. So that's kind of, you know, we're all kind of in the same boat a little bit.
Right,
Yeah, we're all trying to, you know, there's only so many hours in the day and people in the community and those kinds of things.
And you see the same people in every community.
Yeah. So, so this is the first reading. Does anyone have any other questions about this? I would say,
I'd like to commend you for the amount of work you do.
Yeah,
nice job.
very detailed.
Thank you. I would just say that, you know, if there's specific, you know, budget scenarios that I have not presented, if the board wants me to do anything with that in preparation for the second reading, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. The second reading will be at the October meeting, and we will have to vote on an amount at that point, and then, you know, prepare the documentation for the village.
So, directionally, is your comfort level for asking the village for a levy, or are you feeling like, because I mean, it seems like you've done a great job just using what we currently have.
It is my sense that more money is always nice. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I am completely comfortable with the 0% increase, and I feel like we can continue to adequately staff, you know, appropriately staff and appropriately pay our staff, our great staff. Provide the services that we've become known for. I think that we can, you know, at least start, especially if we can sell the 6200 building, we can start renovations there. The building maintenance lines, between the building maintenance lines and the construction of progress lines, that does give us some room to do some other building improvements as they may come up. So I am completely comfortable as the director with a 0% increase in the levy. I do recognize that the potential issue that could come up between voting to go fine-free, which is only a very small percentage of our fines, but then to turn around and say, well, we want a 1% increase in the levy. So, you know,
Right.
so I tried to be very,
Taking away
right, so I tried to be, I mean, even though those things are kind of, they're separate in some ways, I mean, we're
Right.
eliminating fines for a different reason, but
Not a set
I was
amount
very,
either.
very cognizant of that going into this, knowing that we were going to ask to go for fine-free, but then also, you know, understanding how that was, what that looks like. And that, you know, we're trying to, I absolutely understand, you know, I mean, we all pay taxes. If we can keep things flat and still provide the services, as I said, I'm entirely comfortable with staying.
Historically, though, let's just say get a slice of time, 5 years.
Mhm.
What was the levy fluctuating from? Like, is there any? Was it
So,
flat all the way through, or?
no, so if we go back to, let's see, so we went up by 1% last year. I think the previous year was 3%.
I seem to remember 3%.
I thought there was a time when we did 3%.
There was-
I thought it was 3%,
Yeah.
it's about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, and then I
And
know when I
before
was
that,
here,
it
when I
was
was here the
0.
first time, I know there was a couple years that I think we had 0 or
There were a couple of
1%.
years with 0, and
And
then
then I
it was
don't-
3.
I'd have to go back and look at Deborah's budgets, and I don't know how the renovation impacted some of that.
I think because of the renovation.
Well, she got,
we had.
she got a lot of grant money.
She did get some grant money, and I know that did, that was all of, we kind of depleted our budget.
Specific lighting and
Yeah.
various.
Grant money usually is less than 30,000.
Yeah, I mean, the grant money for the lighting actually didn't come until, because I
It
had
came-
to complete
yeah, it came
that, and it was
halfway into the
much
next
less than
year.
we had originally thought we were gonna get. We
Yeah.
only ended up getting about 9,000, and I think that the hope was
Maybe
we
have
would
your
get
attention,
more.
please. The library is
Um,
closing in 30 minutes. If you need to
so,
apply for a library card or.
The highest, at least since I've been here both times, the most we've ever asked to increase in the levy was a 3% increase.
And I'm sure it was after the 2 years of 0.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think, yeah.
But
3%
typically,
was-
it's been lower, or and we've kept it flat, depending on, you know, what we needed to do each year, so.
And
Wasn't last year based on anticipation of there being a shortfall in the budget, that's why we increased it, that was?
There was some concern that the state legislature would enact the property freeze. That's still out there, but it's not been talked about. There hasn't, I don't think that there's any action on that. I mean, that is one thing to consider, that if at some point in the next year that comes back to light and they do enact that we're kind of stuck. And one of the things that, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but,
Loosely pulled it out.
just have a discussion.
but I mean, I think that was
Have a
part of the
discussion with
concern.
Mr. Pritzker.
Yes, so, yeah, I mean, I think there's always that concern that, you know, we could do that, and then we would be scrambling, you know, I mean, because then you do start to, you know, if your tax levy has to stay flat, and every year things continue to go up, and you have to continue to pay staff and salaries and services, then you start looking at cutting services, cutting staff, that kind of thing, freezing salaries, so, but, you know, as I said, I'm perfectly comfortable with the 0% increase in the levy. Anything extra is always nice, but very cognizant of the fact that, you know, of the other decisions that we've made about going fine-free, and that, you know.
The Morton Grove residents.
And the Morton
love
Grove
you.
residents, yeah. So,
And there's always a way.
well, you know, I mean, I know that the board has probably heard me say this before, you know, one of the things that I always think of as the director, as I'm looking at all of these different decisions in terms of money that we're spending, is that if I do have a taxpayer standing in front of me and that they're upset about something, is can I defend what I'm doing? Can I defend the money that we're spending? And if I can't do that, then I don't have any, I shouldn't be bringing it before the board, and I try not to do that. So everything that I present, I feel like you know, there's reasoning behind all of it, be it a 0% increase or a 2% increase on the levy, so.
You can tell your thoughtfulness in the whole budget, you can. Thank you.
That's good, pretty good.
So like I said, just, the board will
8
have.
years ago, there was a revolt, because they wanted to build a library.
I know.
And they
Right.
increased the levy to 10%.
I know.
Was it 10%?
I'm not gonna say that we couldn't use the building just for that, but we're gonna do what we can with this. We're actually painting the ceiling in here next week, so we're painting it white. I'm sorry?
It's not gonna fall on us?
It won't fall on you, that was just superficial, so that's been looked at by a couple of people and it's been repaired, and we're gonna be repainting this white and getting the carpets cleaned next week, and Yeah, Dave's gonna be very busy for the first 2 days next week, so as you review it further, if there's other budget scenarios that you want me to do, either email me and I can prepare those for October, and then if not, the second reading and the final vote will be in October. So then we'll have to make a motion to do something, you know, to whatever. So like I said, the one thing different is I didn't make any strong recommendations either way. But I did want to give the board all the different options.
Thank you.
Good.
I mean, if you're thinking of this, it's obviously, you've got a good handle on what the heck's going on.
I hope so.
Better than I ever did.
You
When I
haven't
was
seen my
doing
desk.
that, you should see when I did budgets. I would toss it in the air.
No.
Toss the toy.
Okay, so we are at communications.
I don't think
There's-
it's department's budget.
We're gonna go into executive. Is that-
Yeah, no, I'm just
Okay,
gonna,
yep. There are no communications for this month.
no, I was just
They
gonna.
don't love us anymore.
No,
We've
they
been
do. They
charging
actually
them
got
too
something
much.
very nice today that will be for next month, but yeah.
Public comments, non-agenda items?
No comments, sir? No comments?
No.
Okay.
None.
Are you enjoying your visit?
It's pretty interesting. So,
Good.
I might as well introduce myself. My name is Vince Romano. I'm one of the people that put in an offer. I was coaching puberty football over at Niles West with my buddy. Started around here right after coaching. So that's when I was 30. I was doing remodeling from then on. So
Oh, you're all right.
That's what we take you in any condition.
what?
We love to have an audience, so.
Yeah. I'll clap. You know.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
If you've got the exact wording, it's for the discussion of real estate, and I might apologize, I did not get it.
Okay. Oh, wait, that's not the right one. Is it the 5 ILCS 120?
120, but I just mentioned that you're going to executive session to discuss real estate.
Just something else.
An offer on property, there's specific wording in it, my apologies for not getting the exact.
5200 Lincoln Avenue update and offers, can we say that?
Right, well, there's a
There is
specific.
a specific,
Hold on, let me look.
Okay.
Yes, we used to have it.
I was gonna say, Joe, in some of your binders, I thought you had the different, or do you have the open meetings?
I
Yeah, I have it open.
I'm just trying to find the right one.
I don't have that binder anymore. I returned it due to lack of interest.
No, I have it at home, but I
I
don't.
don't want to carry it.
Okay, well, mine was lack of interest.
Okay. It's 5 of 18.
So it's 120C, whatever. So you're going to executive session, you can just say that for the discussion of it.
okay, we'll find it.
Well, Blanche put that in the minutes then?
Yep.
Okay.
Blanche will fake it for us.
Is this one of them? I have one.
I'm gonna write it first.
Oh, I remember that sheet. Is this your blue day?
Blue day?
Your blue day?
There, just do,
Will that work?
make it, here, just
I can continue with it afterwards.
do this one, number 3.
I like number 3.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the board go into an executive session to consider the purchase or lease of real property and to consider information regarding employment or dismissal of an employee or officer pursuant to section 2C5 and 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Oh, I
Do you have
motion
to
use
support?
roll call, right?
Aye. It's nice seeing you.
No, she can stay.
Pelletier, I gotta do roll call, right?
Yep.
Yes, Puzo? Yes. Calmag,
Yes, here.
Gonzalez,
Here,
Yes.
you
Mrs.
can.
Jack?
go on, or you
Yes.
can leave.
Monzon,
Yes.
Hogan,
Yes.
alright.
So we've gone, we're going to an executive session, so the public has to leave.
Okay, I'll make a motion to resume open session at 9:11 PM.
Second.
I'll second.
Monzo,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Pelletier, yes, Kuzo,
Yes.
Calamack.
Yes.
Nobody's left.
Now we are in open session. I will make a motion to instruct the director to communicate with the broker to make appropriate responses to all offers on the table.
I will second that. Mr.
Yes.
Monzo,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Pelletier, yes, Kuzo,
Oh, it's a-
Calamack?
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We can, we don't,
I'm glad that was actually adjourned.
Adjourn.
we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:12.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.